Hello YouTube, it's Lion here with Hobbies of a Man once again, and today we are doing another original English light novel review. Now today we are going to be reviewing The Integrity of the Superclub. This is written by Gary Hines and it's illustrated by Sage Camille. This is a self-published book on Amazon. It's available for around $15 USD for the paperback. I'm not sure how much the ebook version costs, but I'll put it up on the screen so you guys can see. The demographic here is shonen, as it's very nicely told right there. And the genres are, according to this, romantic comedy, slice of life, and he mentions lit RPG. However, I would personally call it game lit because the way the game element of the story affects the plot line and the characters and stuff isn't in like a very pure like progression fantasy leveling up kind of style where like you're immersed in the video game like it is in regular lit RPG. I think there's a bit of a difference there that kind of forces it out of lit RPG and more into the general game lit. However, this is the author's intent. That's what they wanted to call it. So it is lit RPG in that sense. And obviously this does not have an adaptation because it is a self-published work. However, this would be really nice in an animation, I think. It would be very cool in a kind of old school Nickelodeon / Jetix kind of animation style with like very sharp lines in the characters and a very colorful palette akin to No Game, No Life. And yeah, so the premise here is basically this rom-com game-lit shonen quest-driven story that revolves around the main character Rover trying to free his city from this vaguely oppressive mandate put in place by the governor of the city. And it's very fun. I really enjoyed it. So let's jump into the evaluation of the story now. The plotline here is great. It's very well done. It's very wacky in the sense that the story is told. It's very odd. Like, okay, it's not actually odd. It's more like weird in the like funny sense. It's like not like the story progresses naturally, normally, very straightforward like. This isn't Nisio Isen style wacky where you're just kind of like all over the place. It's not like that. It's just the voice of the narrator and the characters is very like weird or wacky and like funny. And it kind of forces the story to feel a bit different from how you would feel if you had a very straight and narrow narrator, which is interesting. I really like that. I think it's a very well done concept and Gary Hines executes his storytelling very nicely. But in general, the story is rather, simple, straightforward. There's nothing confusing or anything that develops that kind of like doesn't make sense, which is good. There's the key points of the story here are basically the introduction of the characters, which occurs in like a very interesting way, I guess. I have never seen it before where the characters meet because one of them goes to sell cookies to him, which I guess is kind of like when they introduced that villain in Despicable Me, I guess. So I guess I have seen it before, but it's a very like interesting way to introduce the characters, and I really like the interaction because it really gives off the right impression of each character from the bat. And then after that, it sets up the quest, which is, Rover wanting to beat the governor of the city in order to release the city from the, oppressive doctrine that they have to deal with. However, there is a bit of a contrivance there, I guess. At least it is to me because it feels like it fell too quickly into his lap, like the answer to the problem. It's the first 6 pages, so I don't really mind spoiling it because it's not really all that important. So I'm going to tell you what it is. So skip 30 seconds ahead if you don't want to know. Basically, they have to beat the governor at a video game in order to, get over the doctrine that they have to save the city from. there is no way to do that in the video game when he brings it up. But then, like, the next sentence, there is a way to do it. And then the sentence after that, he's like, okay, I'll do that. And it's fine, because I think it was supposed to be played for laughs in a very, like, tongue-in-cheek, oh, look, what's it called? The quest line fell on his lap. Which I understand, but I didn't really like it, because it didn't really fit with the rest of the story. It was just very, like, out of place, I guess. Like, there weren't really that many contrivances or other, like, jokes of the same type later on. So I didn't really like it, because it didn't really fit with the rest of the story. But it's a very small detail that really doesn't affect the story all that much. Beyond that, there's a bunch of battles, or what I call quests, basically, because it's like, okay, there's a big quest set up, which is beat the governor. And in order to do that, you have to fulfill all of these other things in order to beat him. And each battle basically does something that moves him ahead, right? And it's very well done. I really like it. And then between each one of these battles or quests, there's a checkpoint, which is basically, okay, we beat this guy. Now we have to do something else in order to relax a little bit and then move on to the next battle so we can do it again. And then it does that 3 or 4 times. And then at the end, there's this big battle and a very big climactic section, which is very well done. However, there's another contrivance here at the end. Or, well, it's not really a contrivance. It's just kind of like they beat the guy that they have to beat for the climax of the story. And then they have to fight someone else after that. But then they skip over that battle. And I don't like it, because it doesn't make sense. Like, why would you skip a battle that's, like, important to the plot? Because the battles are supposed to lead to him collecting something. And he does collect something at the end of that battle. But you don't get to see the battle. And I don't really like that. I understand that it was like, okay, I had the climax. I don't need another battle to, like, bring the story down. But if you were going to do that, but if he was going to do that, it would have been better if he just didn't include that fight in the story. Or made it so that the fight was the start of the next book, and it was just kind of like a time skip, like, oh yeah, while, 2 weeks afterwards I fought this guy, and then I beat him, and then the story starts right after that. I didn't really like it that they had the fight right after the climax, and then they skipped the fight in order to finish the book, because it was literally like 2 pages before the book ends. They had that skipped fight, and I just didn't like it. I don't know if it really matters, but I didn't really like that aspect of the writing. And then it sets up the next book, and that's all that there is, right? And it's very well written. I have no problems with the actual story elements. It's just some of the times that I mentioned are, like, not to my taste, because they didn't really fit with the rest of the story. If it was supposed to be like a joke, the first one didn't land, and the second one didn't feel like a joke. So that's it for me on that. However, the book is very well written. Gary Hines self-edits, and I only found like 3 editing mistakes. So that's actually really, really amazing. Kudos to Gary Hines for that. But yeah, I really enjoyed the whole book. I really thought that it was funny and it was interesting, and I really enjoyed the wacky atmosphere that it had. Now, the characters here are good. They're all very weird in their own way. We have Rover, the main character, and he's just very competitive, and he has problems communicating with girls, but at the beginning of the book, he gets a girlfriend who is the female main character, and her name is Quinn Integrity, also called Quintegrity because she thinks it sounds cool. And she's very funky, like, funk music resides in her soul, and it, like, bounces out, and, like, it makes people want to move around with her and stuff. And it's very funny, and it's very interesting, but it's very weird. And that's basically how I feel about all of the characters and the story overall. It's like, I really enjoyed it, but if I was in any other mood when I read this, I would have probably not liked it as much. And Quintegrity is OP as hell. Like, I don't understand why she has all these powers, but she can do things that no one else can. I think it has to do with, one of the situations that arises with her about her being exiled or something. But I'm not really sure, so I'm not going to really speculate about it. And then we have a bunch of background characters. We have Lumpy, who's Rover's best friend, and Adele, who is Rover's sister. We have Benedict, who is kind of like this PewDiePie-esque guy. And he's like the character with which the climactic battle is fought. He's not a bad guy by any means, but he's just kind of like not a good guy. He's kind of like a neutral party that ends up being antagonistic because Rover has to beat him. And then we have Captain Pretentious, which kind of falls under the same boat. But I really don't like her as a person, I guess. She's kind of annoying, and I don't really like the way that she acts. But she was a funny character, and Gary Hines did a good job in making her really come off as pretentious and kind of crappy as a person. So, good job. And then there's Graphite, who is kind of like Rover's and like rival, I guess. He's kind of like the Draco Malfoy to Rover's Harry Potter. And yeah, now the world building, again, it's very wacky. It's very weird. It's not really set in the real world. It's in this place called Thugwood. And the society seems pretty normal, besides the whole mandate that they had to play a video game for an hour a day, and if they don't, they get punished. And then the punishment is this thing called de-rationalization, which means they become illogical or they break the rules of reality. I'm not really sure what it means. And I kind of assume that that's what happened to Quinn, and that's why she's OP as hell. But I'm not really sure. I would really like to read the second book, in order to figure it out. And yeah, the game is very interesting. It's an AR game, so it's an augmented reality. You use your phone screen to look at things, and then they impose images to make the video game occur. It's very interesting, and I really like it. But the game doesn't really have that many like rules to it. I mean, it does. It's like an RPG, but we don't really know the rules as, readers, which Gary Hines did intentionally because he tried to make it a very rigid system, and he realized that it was going to take him too long and it wasn't really going to matter in the context of the story. So he just scrapped it. It's all in his author's note, which I found really interesting. I really like that because I like lit RPG a lot, but they do sometimes end up getting bogged down in the mechanics of the video game, and it kind of gets boring. So I like that this really didn't bother with that. It was just like, okay, we got to get levels, and then we have to get this thing, and then we have to fight other people. And that was basically it. That's why I wouldn't call it a lit RPG. It's just a game lit, because a lot of those game elements and mechanics of video games don't really matter in the end of the day in the story, right? So that's kind of like where my thought process was for that. Now, the art here is very good stuff. It's very well done. I really like the style. I like the coloring that was used here. And I really like these character sheets that we get dispersed out throughout the book. I also like these at the end of each chapter, where Rover has like a updated sheet where he has all of his like money and stats and stuff. I like her design the most. And overall, it was really well done. I think Sage Camille did a really good job with the character art. However, I don't think she did, or they did. I don't really know if it's a man or a girl, or a woman, I guess. But it didn't really do a great job with this. It does fit the same style, but there's like anatomical problems that don't really make sense to me. Like, there's no reason why his hand would be like that if he's trying to reach people. And his legs are like bent at really odd angles. Sorry, not ankles. And I don't know, it just kind of didn't fit with the rest of the art. And I would have liked it if they took the time to refine it more, but I don't really know what the timetable was or how much money was necessary. So I'm not really going to complain that much, but that was the only image that I didn't feel fit the rest of the story, and it didn't really do a good job representing the animal that it was supposed to. And yeah, it's just one complaint out of the 25 images that are in the book. Fan service wise, there's none, and this is a very clean story. I guess there is an element of like adult subcontext in the sense that Rover and Quintegrity are dating, and his friend Lumpy kind of jabs at him about him having, you know, private time with her, and his parents make fun of him and ask him when they're gonna have grandbabies and stuff. But the way it's written, it's not very like explicit or anything, so kids can read this really easily, and people that really don't like fan servicey aspects in the stories can read this no problem. Now the rating here, I give this a 4 out of 5. I have no real complaints besides those contrivances and that one illustration that don't really lower the the score that much for me. It's just that the story was good, but it didn't have any emotional impact on me beyond like, oh, this is fun. And I wish it had more of that in order for me to give it a 5. Now, I definitely recommend this story. I think it's very fun. I don't know if I can think of any similar titles, though. I guess No Game, No Life is the most similar, but it's not very similar. And the mechanics of the video games and the game aspects don't really fit in the same way, so I can't really say that they're the same or that they're very similar. But aesthetically, I guess they're kind of similar. I'm not really sure. And that's it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed the review, and if you did, please like, subscribe, and comment down below. Let me know what you thought. Thank you guys very much. I hope you guys subscribe because we're almost at 300 subscribers, and that's my goal for the end of the year. Thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. See you guys later.